We are at the lighthouse, and there has been a murder. What we know so far is that a blonde girl in her early 20s was found naked at the lighthouse. She had been stabbed multiple times. We spoke with Deputy H.C. Fox from the Racine Sheriff's Department, and he said he discovered the girl's mutilated body about 11:45 p.m. on July 4th. He said he did not know the name of the girl or the motive. They currently have no suspects. The star-spangled slasher is still at large.
I'm Logan Poelman. I'm the director of Hell City Hitcher, and today I'm talking with Don Ricchio, the composer of our theme song, or what's known as Fox's theme. Don, tell us how you came up with the idea for the theme song for Hell City Hitcher.
Well, it's a bit complex, but to shorten the story for just a quick answer, it was research the time, the era of the 70s, and find the instruments that were used during that time, and basically go in a time machine. So, I mean, that's where it all kind of began.
So, you mentioned the instruments, and I, as a musician, pay very close attention. And there is a bass part that is what I would say the spine of the tune. Tell me about the bass part and what you played in that.
Well, it's funny, I played bass for years when I was younger and in different bands, and the thing was, play with your fingers, don't use a pick. Well, 40 years later, I'm like, I gotta use a pick because it's so 70s. So I look at it completely differently now. So I used my dad's Fender jazz bass, 75. So I had the right era, and using a pick, and it just, it was groovy. It sounded so 70s, that pick bass.
It has an awesome tone and timbre, and it's got the percussiveness that I think, the way you wrote the bass line, because of how fast it moves and the sort of phrasing on it, I don't think it would have sounded as good if it was finger.
No, and it's right in there. It's right up in the mix, and it's the primary instrument. It's taken the spotlight.
Is that the same bass you used to play when you played with your dad's band?
It's the same bass.
Okay, that's awesome.
And it was weighed on the scale.
I was going to say much bigger than you were when you started?
Well, and it's, I sat in a stool when I played. I didn't stand.
Right.
And it was cool because, the bass weighed 13 pounds. That's a lot.
Yeah, those suckers can get heavy.
And I'm just a little dude with long hair. And
how old were you when you started playing bass with your dad's band?
I think 12. I used to go to the wedding gigs all the time, and he said, "Hey, why don't you sit in? Grab the bass, I'll yell the chords out to you." So I sat in the whole night and listened to him, and from that point on, I played for like 8 years on bass.
That is awesome. We're going to find that picture.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to insert that picture of you in the most awesome slacks ever. Right? Let's get a little bit music nerdy. The track has an uneasy feel to it. How many time signatures and what time signatures are in the piece? And why? Why those?
Well, the storyline is not predictable. Who knows what's going to happen? So I took that with the time signature. 13/8, you can't tap your foot to it. So it's very, you can't follow it. So it's just an ambiance that's happening. And but I wanted to come back to a simpler time signature, the 4/4. So the 13/8 happens for the while in the mystery section, or and then I have the beach section and that I've kind of titled for myself. And so when there's some resolution going on, you got the 4/4 thing happening, and it feels good and familiar. And then the 13/8, it's a gnarly thing. Well, if you would just count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's just complex. So I break it down.
Mm-hmm.
The 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I count the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That gives you 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 5 left. I'll count 2 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'll add 3 eighth notes. So instead of counting, and the music people will know what I'm talking about now, but as long as I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, then it's easier than counting the 13.
Right.
And once you have it programmed in the head and you hear the drum, then I can hear the 13, I can hear where it starts and ends. And then, just like with anything else you're learning, it gets programmed and then it's easier to follow.
How many instruments did you play on this? And when I say play, I know some of them are MIDI sounds from a keyboard, some of them are real instruments. Can you talk to me about what's on the track and why you decided to choose those?
When I researched the music recorded around that time with soundtracks and such, I thought, well, I want strings. I want the marimba kind of thing. Very minimal guitar. But those two, the strings and the marimba, is really a big component. Now, I'm a huge fan of Kansas. So there's a prime example, if you want to look it up, Miracles Out of Nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's the breakdown. The bass will play a part, then the keyboard will play a part, then you get these 5 overlapping things happening, and then they start over and create a whole new, fresh group of things happening. So the bass got its part, and then I layered the strings into it, and then the marimba into it. So I, in fact, have kind of like 3 melodies going on at once.
There's some, I think it's steel drum on the track.
There's steel drum, which within the kind of music that it's used the most, sounds wonderful.
Right.
But when you throw it in, you know, a string piece or something, it's like, oh, it's very eerie sounding.
It does, and it's not overplayed, and it's that I would describe as, it sounds like the cat was running down the keyboard on the piano.
That's exactly what happened in the movie. No. Well, I did insert acoustic pianos in the murder section, if you want to call it that. It gets a little eerie in that section, and so I've got real low octaves happening, some very odd altered chords, and then with the strings I added some of the staccato, which is like the old cartoons walking across the floor, and there's other occasional stuff put in there, but overall there isn't a lot of instruments. There's enough to convey what I wanted it to feel. So, you know, when the theme starts, you've got 4 or 5 instruments, and that's it. And as a listener, you know, I'll have my wife listen to things and some friends, and you just get an overall feel for it. And then, of course, the guitar with the wah-wah pedal.
Which I will say you could have put more in, and I wouldn't have been upset, but I understand a little goes a long way. And from an editing standpoint, the track is awesome, because I am probably going to end up using it 3 different ways in the movie itself, and we're going to use it as the leitmotif for H.C. Fox. We'll use it when he first finds the girl, then we'll use it again when he's trying to solve the crimes, and then we'll use it again in the scene where he catches up with the killer. So that's a pretty amazing piece of music that it can be used that many ways. You're a pretty great drummer. I was pretty impressed with the drumming on this track. Now, did you MIDI program that drum kit?
I could have, and then the film would be out sometime in 2028, would you say?
Okay.
So recently, a few years ago, I joined a jazz fusion band and met Paul Griffin, drummer extraordinaire. I mean, the guy's phenomenal.
He is an insanely talented drummer.
Phenomenal. So I just reached out and said, I'm working on a project. Can you give me 13/8? And I told him what I need, what measures, and he said, I sure can. He sent it to me and said, let me know whatever it's for. And it's perfect. We tweaked a few things so that it had the nice hi-hat and not a lot of kick drum, which, kick drum became really heavy duty in the 80s. So it's just, it's still more of an orchestrated score and not a rock band playing this. And so
the question I would ask is, how did you get recruited to compose the theme for this indie nano budget film?
Well, that would be a long-standing friend, Logan Poelman. I remember shooting me the idea of doing a movie, and that was it. I don't know if I kind of recruited
Don
myself,
was the first volunteer.
I
Okay,
can't do this.
That's really the crux of the question. Is on Facebook. I said, look, I'm going to do this thing. Anybody interested in playing on it? And Don's like, I will. And I'm like, well, do you want to compose something for it? You want to do the theme? I'll do the theme. Okay. So, I can only say that you volunteered early and you definitely delivered. I know that you played on some other songs on the soundtrack for the movie. Can you talk about the guitar part that you did for this Masquerade?
Oh, great song, George Benson.
So it's awesome tune, right? You and I are both George Benson fans. Okay, so Don and I are very close in age to each other. We grew up with a lot of the same guitar influences. Both love the band Kiss, Kansas, George Benson. I think you just keep adding things in there. Robin Ford, okay, guitar players, and the George Benson tune has some amazing guitar work on it. But first of all, tell me what guitar you played on it.
I played it on a mid-2000s Gretsch. Not the most expensive Gretsch, but a beautiful sounding Gretsch.
how old were you when you started playing guitar?
7. You know, how much does one learn at 7 years old? But my dad, get in there and do it, get in there. No, he wasn't like that at all. He was a player, and so 7, and then enough where, you know, my first gig was 10 years old, and there may have been time in there where you didn't do much, but once I was 13, it was 12, 14.
What kind of
sometimes
guitar
16
did you have
hours
at that age?
The first guitar was a Yamaha acoustic.
Okay.
When I was 13. And then the first electric was a 77 Gibson Les Paul Standard, so.
Which color?
Natural.
Oh. See,
Back
I remember you had a Les Paul, and that you were like the coolest guitar guy ever. I hear you have a cameo role in the film. What is your character, and how did you approach playing that role?
The lighthouse keeper.
We found a girl murdered on the ground.
I knew it. It's that Manson family stuff all over again. These kids taking their trips to the LSD, they killed her. Wait, you're gonna blame me on this? You know, you didn't read me my Miranda rights. Attica.
Well, you love lighthouses, so I had to, you know. It's fun to be in the movie. I wouldn't say that I'm an actor, but I can lie and people will believe me. So I guess maybe I am. Anyway, I think with the script I got, you just like with music, I'll start hearing the script in my head, and he becomes developed. And I will say, after I did the filming, I was him for at least 3 or 4 hours after the filming. It took a while to decompress.
To take it off? Okay, that's good.
Calm down. I just want to ask you a few more questions. I'm just trying to find out if you know anything about the girl's murder.
The lighthouse keeper had plenty of his own theories about who killed her,
You
though.
know, it's probably those crazy Irish. Ever since JFK, they're all uppity. We're the Italians. You can't trust them. Or maybe the Masons. With
Fox
their
was on the force barely
rituals,
6 months,
Tiny cars in the parade, and fezzes.
and
running
this was
around.
his
You can't
first
trust them
major
either.
crime.
Would you score tracks for a future movie by this director?
Yes.
How
Oh, I'll let you finish the question.
Yeah. How do you feel about Westerns?
Well, I reckon I could have a lot of fun with that.
I thank you for taking the time, and I thank you for being a key part of the movie, Don.
Thank you for having me, and I reckon we'll see you in the future.
In a world gone mad, partying and celebrating the 200th birthday of America, there were parades and picnics and fireworks and murder. One girl's life was about to change forever. 1976 was a simpler time. America had finally gotten out of Vietnam. Nixon had resigned and Watergate was over. The oil embargo was over. A peanut farmer from Georgia was president. Peter Frampton asked, "Do you feel like we do?" And we answered, "Hell, yes." Pharaoh was on every young boy's bedroom wall. Disco was on the rise. People had pet rocks and mood rings. And a pretty young blonde girl had stuck out her thumb to hitch a ride. Her naked body would be found hours later by Deputy H.C. Fox. She had been stabbed 76 times. Over the years, there were many theories, each one more bizarre than the previous. In a town where everyone knows everyone's business, it is 40 years later and the killer has never been found. Hitching can get you killed. Hell City Hitcher, summer 2021.